Good evening, hockey fans,
Hi.
and welcome to another episode of Pod Snipe Celly. My name is Dan Bradley. Alongside me tonight, Joel Fernino. Joel, how you doing, buddy?
I am good, Daniel. How's it going? Is it gloomy in Cincinnati as it is in Chicago right now?
You know, it's really not. It's the weather here has been pretty solid over the last few days. 68 and clear today, but it is getting chilly overnight.
I love it. I love
had
it.
hockey practice this morning. Boys were on the ice at 6 a.m., so I was leaving about 5:30, and it was a brisk 37 degrees when I left this morning.
Yikes.
Yeah, needed to let the car run for a minute on the way into practice. So we're getting into that time of year.
Yeah.
But few better times a year. We got a shout out from Jesse here, fellas. What's up? How's it going, Jesse?
What's up?
Thanks
How's it
for tuning
going
in tonight? This is our Minnesota Wild and Chicago Blackhawks home cooking preview show.
Hell yeah.
So, as you might have guessed from the
Fun as
apparel
that
that we're wearing, Joel, our resident Blackhawks fan, and I, of course, am a Minnesota Wild. I don't think homer is necessarily the right word, but definitely
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
a fervent fan. HP checking in as well. What's up, Pheasants? Hockey is so back.
It is
Yes,
so
it is.
back. I am so ready. I will try to watch some of it because this time Thursday I will be in Florida. So I'm ready for some sun and maybe some hockey if I have a chance.
What's taking you to Florida?
For Kevin's birthday.
There you go. Very nice.
Doing a little Epcot, drinking around the world, and doing a little Universal Studios action, and also hashtag Flyers for the Cup in 2089. Hey,
oh boy,
hey.
Jesse, they'll get there before then.
No, Jesse, I got you. 2089 Stanley Cup Final, Flyers Blackhawks.
Jonathan Toews might still be playing in that game.
I don't know about that one, but yeah, you know what? The only way he's still
his contract will finally be off the books by then.
What? That joke doesn't even work. Their contracts are up next year.
They're just going to keep re-signing him and keep re-signing him.
Hey, I'm fine with that. Maybe by then we'll have the technology to make players cyborgs. If anyone's going to become a cyborg, it's Captain Sirius.
He would be the one to do it. Yeah, that makes sense. Or maybe they'll bring back Artemi Panarin by then.
Why you gotta do me like that, man? Why
Jesse, Joel, you're on.
Hey, let's do it.
There you go. 2089 Cup.
That's the 2010 rematch. It only took
only took almost a century.
Hey, we're here for it.
So let's just jump right in here with the Chicago Blackhawks, who, we joked before the show, how do we want to stagger this with these two? Because frankly, the direction of both of these clubs is a bit different for this season.
Staggeringly different.
I wanted to be a little nicer and more polite about it. It's the Minnesotan in me, just kind of dancing around that. But the Blackhawks coming off another, is it fair to say another disappointing season? Like it was disappointing, but is it? It's fair to say it's been several in a row now.
Well. Yeah, it has been several in a row. And last season, no one expected us to, none of us, any realistic Hawks fan or hockey fan did not expect us to do too much. I remember at the beginning of the season, I said, we're either going to be very mid enough to make a wild card or we were going to be trash, and we were the latter. So, no one really expected that much last season, but I guess I didn't expect all the off-ice things either.
Yeah, off-ice was certainly rougher than on ice.
Exactly.
HP preview summary, it's not good.
Listen, HP.
Here's
listen.
the thing,
you
HP.
know what, HP? Listen here. You know what? I got nothing. He's right.
We're going to try and find some rays of hope here.
Within
the Blackhawks organization with the outlook for the future. Some things that just maybe, weeding our way through it and working through the muck. There will be some things that we can point to steer Blackhawks fans in the right direction here. But to recap last season, 28, 42, and 12 on the season.
Love that.
68 points. That was the sixth worst record in the league, second worst in the Central, only ahead of the Arizona Coyotes, but a full 9 points separating Chicago and Arizona last season. And then the trades.
I mean, that was the
as
biggest
well.
thing. Like here's the thing. We'll dive right in with if I can have a monologue.
Go for it. By all means. This segment is for you.
Look, yeah, I mean, we're gonna dive deeper, but I think the high level monologue of this season is growth. This is the first full year of the rebuild. You know, Kyle Davidson said the word rebuild, not just once, but countless times. This is the first year of it. And to your point, that's kind of what reminded me to start really talking about it was, you know, the rebuild definitely was hinted at getting rid of Brandon Hagel at the deadline for a king's ransom of a return. And then it was basically all but confirmed when we sent away Alex DeBrincat and Kirby Doc, amongst not re-signing others such as Dylan Strome for starters there.
Because reasons.
You know, that I love that kid, man. I was really hoping he'd stick around. But I get it. We got to move on. He's not getting any younger. He's still very young, but he's not getting any younger. I get it. This whole season, I will put it into it's all about development. Like no legitimate Hawks fan should be expecting anything but just bad hockey this year. Now, it's not to say I'm going to watch just as many games as I do every season. But a lot of it is going to be due to just I want to see development. I want to see the guys we brought in. I want to see just I guess I won't watch a lot of Rockford games because we kind of can't. I don't really know where to find them other than on
AHL.TV.
That I have just learned about something.
we'll get you a subscription here, but yeah, there's as we'll talk about on the next show on American Beauties, free to watch this weekend. So you can get yourself a little preview there. A totally shameless plug there for American Beauties at 8:45. But
hey, the amount of shameless plugging I do of this podcast, you should be shameless plugging that true. Podcast.
That's true. We do get some good crossover there too. So
God, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's all about seeing the kids develop. I mean, checking up on all the prospects that are back in juniors. I mean, like Kevin Korchinski, like Frankie Nazar. What's the other? Sam Rinzel.
Sam Rinzel, yeah.
Rinzel. Checking up on those 3 first-round picks. Checking in on Lucas Reichel, seeing what we'll get into that. I will get into that, trust me. But checking in on him, he's going to be starting out the year in Rockford. Bit of a polarizing decision, but we'll get into that. Yeah, so I mean, it's just going to be like, and obviously the biggest story, the biggest elephant in the room is Kane and Taves' future, which I believe will come to fruition in the year of 2023 for sure. We will see what happens there. That's the biggest one, but yeah, I mean, it's gonna be rough, man. We're gonna be bad. We're gonna be fighting for that first overall pick. We're gonna be, as I say, # suck hard for Bedard, and I'm gonna buy into that.
I'm not gonna ask you to prognosticate where Kane and Taves might end up. I think just because of how much can change between now and the trade deadline with where teams are at in the standings, with various cap situations to come into play as well. That's not really a fair assessment to make before any teams have even played. I shouldn't say that. We've had 2 teams that have played so far, and we're about 20, maybe 30 minutes away from puck drop on another.
Yeah, like those games counted, but like
it'll be our first games in North America. So
yeah, exactly. And neither of you guys haven't played yet, right? I know we haven't.
No. That's this is the first night. Yeah. The Wild start on Thursday against the Rangers.
So you don't start till Thursday, okay?
Right.
Yeah. So I mean,
Chicago's tomorrow night, right?
Yeah, we're tomorrow night. Gotta love that. Guess who we draw in the first game of the season?
The defending champs, I do believe.
Yeah, that's gonna be ugly. But I will lean into this preview really quick with, and I'm sure you'll do this with the Wild too, with the opening night rosters. So opening night roster. Roster's got sets, and I'll mention all the names, and then whoever's on injured reserve, I'll just call it out afterwards. But on our forwards, we got newcomer Andreas. I'm already he's got a tongue twisting name. Andreas Athanasiou, one of two newcomers I am excited to watch. I mean, those were simply like, I'll get into it. Andreas Athanasiou, Colin Blackwell. Other newcomer I'm excited to have is Max Domi. Jason Dickinson, who's having visa issues, so he's on reserve. Mackenzie Entwistle, Reese Johnson, Tyler Johnson, no relation. The GOAT, Patrick Kane, Boris Kachuk, who will start on injured reserve. Jujar Kara, I love that guy. I'm happy he's back. Philip Kurashev, Sam Lafferty, I also love that kid. Jalen Lipin, he will also start on injured reserve. Taylor Radish, fantasy sleeper.
Care to elaborate on your reasoning there? Just
Taylor
I haven't
Radish?
heard that one thrown out yet. Yeah.
I will. Give me that'd be getting ahead of myself in the preview here. But I will. Philip Kurashev. Oh, I said him already. Taylor Radish. Buddy Robinson. I'm actually not even sure who that is.
You go find out.
the captain, Jonathan Taves, and that rounds out the forwards. Now on defense, we got defending Stanley Cup champion Jack Johnson. Caleb Jones, who will start on injured reserve. His brother Seth Jones, favorite for the Norris. I'm just kidding. Jake McCabe, who will start on injured reserve.
Can we start a Caleb Jones for Norris bit?
I'm excited for him though, man. He's a decent
up and comer
third pairing guy. Like, hey, I'll take him. Jake McCabe starting on injured reserve. Dan knows how I feel about him.
Oh, I do.
He's the new Connor Murphy for me.
Yep.
I've grown to love Connor Murphy, whereas Jake McCabe now is taking over as the why the hell are you on this team? You suck. Ian Mitchell, he'll start on injured reserve. The aforementioned Connor Murphy. Alec Regula, Philip Roos, Jared Tenorti, and Alex Vlasic. And then, of course, the goalies we're rocking, we know are both new, Peter Mrazek and Alex Stalock.
I love me some Alex Stalock, and you're gonna love him too. He's just a guy that you want to root for.
Between him and Mrazek, like I'm not like shouting from the rooftops, like my God, yes, our goalie tandem is Peter Mrazek and Alex Stalock, but like.
It's not a great tandem for going into the season, but it's a tandem of likable players that will endear themselves to the fans.
And realistically, if I can compare it to the NFL, it's like having a bridge quarterback. They're just it's a bridge goalie tandem for the guys in the prospect pool to continue to grow and hopefully be the next Corey Crawford.
Yeah, something that kind of the goaltending situation for Chicago has really been in flux over the last few years. Basically, I would argue even while Crawford was still there, just not knowing his future with the injuries, the concussions, right. Going back to Kevin Lankinen, who is now with the Nashville Predators, Colin Delia, who is he's minor league AHL somewhere, but he's an AHL starter.
Yeah, I don't. He's no longer with us. So he's no longer with Rockford.
He's with Vancouver.
Okay.
So he's in their minor league system. So he'll be the number 3 goaltender in that system. But again, kind of just as it's going through, it really seems like it's going to be buying some time for a guy like maybe an Arvid Soderblom, who had a pretty solid year at Rockford last year and didn't quite latch on with the NHL right away. But again, he's 23. He's got some more time to develop. Could be someone there that eventually the Hawks might take over. They've got some time to figure that out yet.
Yeah, there's a chance there's not even a chance. There's probably a guarantee you will see him back up with the big club at some point this year. I don't know when. But quite frankly, I mean, any young up and comers that are in Rockford right now, I think it's just a good idea. And this is actually a good segue. I think it's a good idea. They should just stay there. Like, there's no reason to call them up early. There's nothing is getting achieved this year other than growth, and that's it. Growth and development is the hashtag one goal this year. So like, I'm okay with Soderblom staying down with Rockford as much as he can. Build his confidence, build the areas of his game that still aren't quite NHL ready yet. And the same exact thing, this is my segue, can be said for Lucas Reichel.
Yeah, I was just going to segue to that if you weren't leading it that way.
That's one of the big stories. Like, that arguably is top 3 of the Blackhawks stories throughout the year. Will be, when do we see Lucas Reichel pop up to the big club? And quite frankly, I don't. It is what it is. Like, I think he should take his time. Like, he was a little over a point per game player in the AHL last year. Showed that he's going to be a great player. I think he's going to be a really good player in the NHL, but he's still got to work on some things. I know he's got to work on kind of his away from the puck game a bit, along with maybe beefing himself up a little bit. He is still kind of a little bit on the weaker side, so he's going to have to kind of beef himself up just a little bit to, deal with the heavier teams in the NHL when he does get up here. But I mean, the skills and the show is there. And the more he can stay down, and I think my thing on Lucas Reichel, and I'm sure you'll have a take, but my take is totally fine that he didn't make the club for the opening roster. Send him down to the AHL, and if he is going to be as good as we're hoping and we think he's going to be, let him destroy down in the AHL and get that huge confidence boost. There's no reason to stunt his growth by throwing him into the deep end of the pool right away when we're not going to win anything anyway.
Yeah, I agree. And we should mention here, Joey chimed in too. Sorry, he's like, hockey's back. Thank goodness, Joey. We totally agree. Hockey is back.
Hockey is back.
15 minutes away from puck drop here. We've got the Tampa Bay Lightning and the New York Rangers on tap tonight, a rematch of the Eastern Conference Final.
Is that on ESPN?
It is. It is on ESPN and ESPN Plus.
Okay.
And then the late game tonight is the Golden Knights and the Los Angeles Kings.
Let's go Knights. So, second team.
By the way, if we've got time at the end of the show, I did grab a couple for Wednesday night picks, so we can bring that
Hell
back.
Yeah, let's
because
bring it back.
Wednesday night games for tomorrow. Joey kind of with my point as well. At some point, the development has to take the next step. I'm okay with starting him in Rockford, but and I think what's going to happen with Reichel is, he'll probably be in Rockford until maybe even after the trade deadline, especially if Kane and or Taves are moved. The Hawks are going to be. I'm sorry, I have to bring it up, and
hey, it's fine. I mean, that's going to be getting tossed around all season. It's just the thought of it still sends a deep just shot to my heart. Anyway, go ahead.
We'll move past it, and I'll say it this way: if there happen to be roster vacancies within the forward group after the trade deadline, that might be an opportunity for Reichel to move up. But again, Reichel as a player is somebody that is going to be ideally a big part of the future for the Blackhawks. And he's 20 years old. People need to kind of keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Every 18-year-old kid fresh out of the draft is not going to come in and do what players like Connor McDavid and Auston Matthews did. Seeing players at that level in their draft plus 1 year, and now Reichel is draft plus 2.
Yep.
So he's had 2 full seasons after his draft year. This is about the time that you would think that, okay, starting to crack the lineup, or what's going to be better for your development, especially as a forward playing, between 16 and 20 minutes a night at the AHL level on the top line, or playing, maybe 8 minutes a night at the NHL level. Right. Until some of the guys ahead of him would be moved, it is not to the Hawks' advantage to rush his development. It's more important to keep him playing. And especially, as a player coming over from Germany, who now has had a little bit of time to kind of get his skates under him stateside, I really think it's important for him to be playing those top line minutes and building up that confidence, building up the techniques.
Yep.
And he'll still get, time to practice. I would think he's likely a very early roster call-up if there are injuries early in the season.
Yep.
I would think he would be someone who, as a player who is waivers exempt on his entry-level deal, and just financially as well, with his entry-level deal cap hit, that would be a logical move for the Hawks to make, to be moving him back up and down. And somebody who I think Hawks fans will need to monitor throughout the year, because especially after moving on from guys like Hagel and DeBrincat, he is the future round. Like they made that decision that he's going to be the guy that they're going to build around. So I'm all for, if you're going to make this the guy you're building around, and you don't need to rebuild everything in a day, you don't need to rebuild it all in a month, and even over this season, like it is a multi-year rebuild incoming for Chicago. But the draft picks that they made this past year, especially snagging what might be their future top pairing defensemen with Korchinski and Rinzel, if those two guys pan out the way that I certainly think that they can, Rinzel a little bit more of a defensive-minded defenseman, where Korchinski will bring more of the offensive upside. That could be a very effective tandem in the future for Chicago. But you don't want to bring these guys along too quickly, and especially in a year where, you mentioned the suck hard for Bedard movement. This year's upcoming draft class is so deep that the Hawks are going to amass draft capital in some way, shape, or form. That might be, as I look at their cap situation, they have a little over $4 million in room right now. So $4.4 million in projected cap space. That's before any LTIR moves. That's before any player contracts are moved. And especially if you're moving Kane and Taves, you're probably retaining half on that deal. But if, let's say, both are moved, that clears up about $10.5 million in cap that they can use on acquiring other teams' cap and draft capital as a result to make some room. So I do think there's going to be a lot of draft capital for the Hawks this year. Currently, they have 2 first-round picks already. One is a conditional first-round pick. The pick from the Hagel deal is top 10 protected for this year and for next year. Those first-round picks from Tampa Bay.
They won't be top 10.
No, those won't be top 10 picks, barring ridiculously bad injury luck for Tampa Bay. That's about the only way that those potentially end up as top 10 picks. Exactly. But even there, I think you're probably looking at those picks in the 22 to 28 range is probably a little bit more fair. But still, a first-round pick is a first-round pick. And guys who go in the 20 to 32 range in this year's class, in a lot of other years, are probably top 10 picks. So, Joey chiming in here as well. My mindset. Oh, go ahead. You read this one. I've been talking for a while.
Oh, it's all right. So Joey, my mindset for the Hawks: soak in every moment of 1988. I couldn't agree more. I will touch on that before we move on. Enjoy 81 number retirement. I will be at that game. I will. Mm-hmm. That's a guarantee. I will be.
You're gonna cry.
Game. Oh, I'm gonna cry my eyes out during that game. I almost cried during the Pat Foley retirement. Anyway, and I was there too. Keep an eye on Rockford, see some of the young talent they have in the NHL, and get a great draft. Get great draft and then picks. Yes, I mean, look, Joey is a great lead. That comment's a great lead into the biggest theme of the Hawks season this year for fans, from the fans' perspective, is going to be patience.
Mm-hmm.
You touched on it. You touched on it, diving into our farm system as it stands right now, right? Like, these guys aren't going to come, like all the guys we've drafted currently, hell, even in general, like you rarely ever see somebody come in like a McDavid, like a Matthews, and make a huge impact right away. I mean, I think it's any sport really. Like you need to give these guys time to develop. I mean, we talked about it like with the NFL, those guys like the QBs and everything, they don't even get in until they're 23-ish, 22, 23, maybe 24. And you get people that are like why the hell isn't he Tom Brady right out of the gate, right? Like, it's the same with every fan
Is this
base.
a Justin Fields comment?
Kind of.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
A little bit, a little innuendo there, but yes.
Yep.
Same thing with hockey. You know, like why ever, you know, you think about, you know, I mean, you think about like Reichel. You know, there are the sides of people that are mad that he's not starting on the big club this year. And the thing is, and there were people that were like, you know, he played in a couple NHL games last season, and I think he amassed like 2 assists, whatever it was. It wasn't much, obviously, but that was the thing. Like, people are already like, oh God, he sucks. And it's like, no, these guys need time. They're not going to come into the fold and in one game be Patrick Kane. Like you can't expect greatness right away. And hell, it might not be, you know, it might not pan out. We've seen it. Obviously, Stan Bowman had a crap ton of shit picks. But yeah, I think overall it's just got to be patience. I agree with Joey. Like, let's watch the guys grow. And totally agree. Like, that's going to be I mentioned it in the beginning of the show. I'm going to be at the most Hawks games this season that I think I've ever gone to. And that's including during the dynasty years, because they'll probably be cheaper for one, but most importantly, I want to soak in 19 and 88 as much as we can, because we don't know if they're going to be here. And you don't know what you have until it's gone, right? So as cliche as that is. And the other thing too, I think I need to get across before we continue on the preview here, is like, this season, more than most, like I said, this is the first full season where Kyle Davidson is in his permanent GM chair. This is the first full season of declaring the rebuild. We need patience. And quite frankly, we need to chill a little bit. This is preemptively. I'm not saying anybody's going after Kyle Davidson already. And not to mention also Luke Richardson. I am so excited for that hire. Like, I hope he sticks around. And that dude is going to be, by the way, the best jawline in the NHL. Look him up if you haven't actually looked him up.
I'm just trying to think who else would even be up there in that competition. Maybe RBA and maybe Mike Sullivan, but beyond that, they're not many.
They got nothing on his jawline.
It's a small list.
But yeah, like, Luke Richardson is going to be an awesome coach. He is going to command that room. That room is going to respect him pretty much right out of the gate. I think I've already heard things, how he's already kind of helping out with the veteran leaders, Kane and Taves, you know, asking their opinions, involving them in everything. Like, this dude is going to be great, and he's going to help develop all these kids. I hope he's here for the long run, and I hope he's here the next time we have success. But this year is finally the year where we're not going to be bogged down and shackled by the Stan Bowman mistakes. You know, it's the sins of the past, and I don't want to hear anybody complain about Davidson when, you know, somebody like, let's say, Alex Vlasic, it just turns out not to be that good, which he's going to be fantastic, so there's nothing to worry about there. But, you know, if any guys that came in under Davidson, or if any of these guys start to not pan out, like, it's not his fault. Like, this is the first year he finally has draft capital. He finally has his own prospects that he drafted. You know, our farm system prior to this year was absolute crap, because Stan Bowman basically just stood there and was just rapid firing into the air draft picks, contracts, and you name it. And now all of that has been gone. Yeah, we're going to miss Alex DeBrincat. We're going to miss Brandon Hagel. We're going to miss, I guess, in a way, Kirby Doc, even though he didn't really pan out. But if he does pan out, we're gonna miss him a little bit.
And Montreal is going to be able to put him in a role where he's like right away jumping into that top 6. So
yeah, and his growth won't get stunted there like it was here.
Right. I'm going to ask you one more question on the Hawks here.
Yeah.
So looking at their season point total projection, DraftKings has set the line at 66.5 points for this season. Hawks finished with 68 last year. Are you going over or under 66.5 points for the Hawks this year.
What was our win total again?
The win total was 28,
28.
42, and 12. So 68 points. They're setting the line for this year at 66.5. So minus 1.5 points from last year. Literally one more regulation loss than last year.
Dude, I would not be surprised, and I'm gonna take the under.
Yeah, I mean, Joey's taking the under too.
Under 66.5. Like I'm not sitting here saying we're gonna break Detroit's record of a couple of years ago where they had the most, like the least amount of wins ever.
One of the worst, because it was an 82 game season. I think it was the worst 82 game season.
Exactly. I'm not saying we're gonna do that. Would I be surprised if that happened? No, not really. But
I mean, realistically, I don't know that the Hawks are the worst team in the league this year. They're going
to beat
Arizona. Let's not mess around with that. But they are, I think, objectively a bottom 5 team.
Yeah, and the thing there too, exactly, totally agree. And I think that the thing there too is, as long as Kane and Taves are on the team, they'll will you those victories that come out of nowhere.
Yeah, there will be a couple of those that boost the total.
Right, like you can
get
see
it up
some
to
upsets.
66.5.
No, not enough.
I don't know that I see it.
That's too much to ask of them. But yeah, I mean, dude, it's gonna be patience. It's gonna be a rough one, but just go to the games. Like, don't sit there and be like, maybe if we don't go to the games, like they'll realize the impact. No, they are rebuilding. Like, we're gonna go through some tough times for a couple of years at least. You know, I mean, all teams have to do it sometimes, and based on the success we had, like, we are paying the toll now. But at least we have. The thing is Davidson picked a lane, and so far he's barely been he hasn't even been in his seat for a full year yet. His official seat, I should say. Obviously, he was the interim, but his official seat for a year. And I mean, I'm already a fan of the draft picks he made last year. Like, we went from not having a first round pick last year to having 3 first round picks.
Yeah,
like, that's huge. And I'm already hearing a bunch of great things about Kevin Korchinski. I'm seeing a bunch of highlights. I think it's going to be worth it. I'm forever the optimist, but I think it's going to be worth it. We saw Alex DeBrinket's Players Tribune thing today. He had a heartfelt goodbye to us. He thought he was going to be here for the long run and help turn this team around. And I wish he would be here, but you know what? It is what it is. We need to move on from that stuff. We can't hold that over Davidson's head. He had to do what he had to do. So yeah, I will wrap it up because I've taken enough time on the Blackhawks. We can go to a more hopeful team in the Wild.
Yes,
but, just patience for the Hawks season. That's all I ask. And Connor Bedard. That's all. All right. Anyway,
the Minnesota Wild, kind of the complete opposite.
180
here.
See how our moods just went up?
Finished second in the Central Division last season. A 53, 22, and 7 record, 113 points. Quick math says that's almost double where the Hawks were at.
All right. You throwing shots in here, man?
A little bit.
All right. Yeah. Where's your cup?
It's coming. It's coming. 2025.
Right. No, I'm glad you.
2025. Once they're through the Parise and Suter buyouts, once they've got Danila Yurov in the system, once they've got Jesper Wallstedt as the starting goaltender, bringing up Carson Lambos, Ryan O'Rourke, Kalen Addison is more developed. Kirill Kaprizov is in his prime. Marco Rossi hitting stride. Matt Boldy. All of the young guns coming through. It's going to take a couple of years, but they get through that and they're going to be fine.
I don't know how I went through my entire preview without mentioning Drew Comesso, but
yeah, we mentioned him at the goaltending part with Soderblom.
Oh, we did.
Yeah. I got a very, very quick Drew Comesso mention in there. But there's probably your future tandem is those two.
I hope. Anyway, continue.
I like Comesso. Anyway, Minnesota Wild finished second in the Central last year, but again, bounced in the first round of the playoffs, something that is a theme in Minnesota sports, and in particular with the Wild. A series where they had finished ahead of the St. Louis Blues in the division standings by 4 points, but the Wild third in the West, the Blues fourth in the West. And the way that the playoff structure shakes out, those two play each other in the first round for some dumb reason.
I agree.
That said, it was an entertaining series. The Blues won in 6 games, and then were one of 2 teams to actually beat the Avalanche in the postseason. So there is that. But for the Wild, really kind of looking at a year where it's further development for the younger players. And as you see Marco Rossi and Matt Boldy and Kalen Addison and Tyson Jost battling for those roster spots and that ice time, that's going to be key for Minnesota this year is where are they going to fall? In particular, Marco Rossi is very interesting to me.
That video of him making the team was so cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. And then Addison as well. They're changing his number from 59 to 2. So sorry to our buddy State of Hoppy who has his jersey, the 59 jersey hanging up on the wall behind him on his show, the Soda Pod. But yeah, he's a big Kalen Addison guy.
I get it. Is the NHL the next one to like take up what the NFL did with just changing their numbers all of a sudden? Like,
well, usually the players who are working their way onto the roster have the weirder numbers, and you get like a 59 or a 76 or whatever, and just odd higher numbers.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the NHL, you pick generally a lower number. I don't know why that's the case. And for some guys, I mean, not everybody, obviously, but, you look at guys like McDavid, Crosby, Stamkos, guys who have kept their Kaprizov, who have kept their jersey numbers high.
Kane.
But yeah, Kane.
Well,
but switching to number 2, I mean, that was a cool moment there. But yeah, seeing what is next for these young guys who really are the future. The Greenway, Eriksson Ek, Foligno line is one of the best defensive lines in hockey. They did not allow a 5-on-5 goal until like late February or early March of last season. I mean, it is dangerous how good that line can be. And then defensively, if you're deploying those 3 with Jonas Brodin on the back end against, say, McKinnon, Landeskog, Rantanen, Makar, that is offensive firepower versus defensive force. That's must-watch hockey. Yep. Especially hoping that at some point they change it during the season. HP chiming in, Addison changed his own numbers. So, yeah, I mean, it was a player choice to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so from the Wild standpoint, keys to this year, keep the development of the young players going. I know that Marco Rossi is starting the year on the 4th line, and that has some Wild fans upset. But the thing to remember there is he's going to be getting power play time. He is a player that they are actively building around, and he is ready for the NHL level. We mentioned with Reichel earlier, where is it better to be tearing it up at the AHL level or working your way in at the NHL level? Yeah. Rossi, I think, is just a little bit further ahead in his development than Reichel. That's not to say he's going to be a better or worse player. That's just differently where they're at in their development. And, of course, Reichel a winger, Rossi a center. So it's not a true equivalency there.
Right.
But with Rossi, I also don't know that we don't see at the end of the year that he could potentially be centering for Kaprizov and Zuccarello on that top line.
Yeah.
It's possible that he stays on the 3rd line, but they keep that line of Boldy, Rossi, and maybe Tyson Jost or Freddie Gaudreau on that opposite side. Those are some really, really good players that are up-and-comers. HP saying, with regards to Boldy, Andy has looked good with Dewar and Duhaime on that 4th line. I don't understand why people are upset about what line he's on. Yeah, people get caught up in the numbers.
There's no lines don't really. I mean, like the first 2 lines, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I remember HP. He brings up a good point. I remember during the dynasty years when all of a sudden Q started putting Taves on the top line and then Kane on the second line, and everyone's like, "What? Patrick Kane, a second liner? What?" And it was like, dude, spread out your depth. Spread out your skill.
Exactly. If you were to look at the Minnesota Wild right now and say, what's their first line? you can't legitimately answer that question because they have their first offensive line, which is Kaprizov, Hartman, and Zuccarello. But then they have their top defensive line of Greenway, Eriksson, and Foligno.
Right.
And the minute distribution between those two lines is very, very similar.
Yeah.
So it's hard to call one or the other a true first line.
First 1A, 1B. That's basically what we were calling it.
But then even as you get into Boldy, Rossi, and probably Jost, that's what I think the line is going to be. There's going to be some movement throughout the year. And then again, a kid line with Dewar and Duhaime. Where does Rossi fall in regards to those two? Sam Steele, I would be remiss if I didn't mention him as well. He had a dynamite preseason.
He sounds like he needs a TV show on like daytime television.
I would watch that. I would watch a Sam Steele show.
Sam Steele.
Yeah, it's a good hockey name. Joey bringing up a good one here that I think we need to touch on as well. Flower turns back the clock. Heard it here first. Vezina Convo doesn't win it, but in the talk.
Hell to the yes, Joey.
I would absolutely love if that happened.
I'm right on that same ship, and you continue to yell at me every time I say it. Dude, the Flower still has plenty in the tank. He's going to be with you full time now. It's not going to be like, oh, God, am I getting traded this season? Oh, I got traded. Now I got to get used to a system, some new players, blah, 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 blah. No, he has things set up now. He probably moved his family to Minnesota now. Like, he's, unless they're still here in Chicago. I don't think they are, though.
Not sure.
Dude, plus, like you said, like, you got great defensive forwards. You have great defensemen. Like, Flower, what he did in front of or behind us.
Yeah, when he's not having to stand on his head, night in and night out and just get.
When he's not seeing 50 shots a night,
Right. Right. And that wears on a goaltender as well. Even more than the games is the shots. A goaltender could probably play 60 to 70 games a season if he only saw 10 shots a night. Now, that's not realistic. That doesn't happen in today's NHL, but once upon a time, that was a thing, and goaltenders would play every single game.
That'd be a boring game.
I think realistically, Fleury plays probably right around 50 to 55 games, I think is probably a fair range for where he'll be at. They do have a backup goaltender who they traded for. They shipped Cam Talbot to the Ottawa Senators and in return got Philip Gustafson, who is in the final year of his deal. He's a restricted free agent at the end of this year. So the Wild do have team control there. And he's somebody who, again, has been playing in Ottawa for the last few years. And Ottawa as a team, they're in much better shape this year than they've been in any of the past 5.
They're making the playoffs.
They are at least a fringe playoff team,
shot called,
if not full in. That said, Gustafsson has not had a great team playing in front of him over the last couple of years. He has shown some flashes of being, at the very least, a good backup goaltender. He's probably a bridge goaltender between Fleury and Jesper Wallstedt. That said, they can let Wallstedt develop at the AHL level. This is his first year playing in North America. So, again, give him at least 1 year of AHL time, maybe even a second season, depending how Gustafsson does, depending how Fleury does this year. But if Fleury is putting up Vezina-type numbers again, the sky is the limit for what this Wild team can do.
Not to mention, you have a guy on your team named Kirill Thrill. 108 points last season, 47 goals, 61 assists. Quite frankly, I think he's going to have another season just like that, and I think he's going to be fighting for that. You know what? Yeah, you heard it here first. Kaprizov is going to fight for the Art Ross this year.
I like it. I think
he's not going to win.
Art Ross is within reach. I think the Hart is within reach as well. Just looking at how he has completely changed the face of the Wild organization.
Let's be honest, he has put the organization on his back.
if the award was given to the player who was most valuable to his team, it's hard to argue that there were players more valuable to their team last year than Kaprizov and Igor Shesterkin, and that's kind of about it. Oilers, I can understand your McDavid, Draisaitl. You've got both. You take one away, yes, obviously they're less effective, but having two, where does that play? It's the same deal with, where do you put Kane in awards conversations when he was on a line with Taves and Hossa for a brief period? Eventually, as we talked about, they broke that up, but neither here nor there. What Kaprizov has done for Minnesota has already been phenomenal. I think it's already fair to say he's the best player talent-wise to play for the Minnesota Wild. I think he is going to be the first 50-goal scorer in team history. And if I'm going to make one really bold prediction, let's say the first.
A boldy prediction?
Oh, not a boldy prediction, although I could make a boldy prediction as well.
No, did you not?
Oh, I did. I'm with you.
No.
I'm with you.
All right.
I was going to say, I could say over 60 points for Boldy this year. I'm going to say Kirill Kaprizov will be the first 60-goal scorer in Minnesota Wild history. They have yet to have a 50-goal scorer. He had 47 last year.
Whoa!
I think he could get to 60 this year, and that's what I'm going with. I'm gonna say 61 goals this year for Kirill Kaprizov.
So you're gonna throw that out there when we just had the first 60-goal scorer in the league in the last however many years last year?
Yeah, it was 11 years, because 2011 was the last time someone did it, and that was Stamkos.
Well,
yeah,
maybe.
Yep, he stays healthy, and the Wild play well, and playing a lot of games against a weak Western Conference.
I'd like to know
as a whole.
I'd like to know the betting odds on that. Plus 60.
I'll see what I can find. Maybe under some individual
prop bets of some sort.
Player stats. Here we go. Let's see if I can do a quick search. Okay, Kirill Kaprizov. This is on DraftKings as well. Regular season goals over or under 43.5. It's even money on each way. I'm absolutely hammering that over.
Yeah.
Hammer it.
That's easy money.
The point total for the Minnesota Wild this year, I have to go back to the other page here. So give me just a second there. Team total points for Minnesota was over or under 101.5. The money favors the over here. I have to think the over is the hit as well.
Because 113 last year, right?
Yeah, 113 last year. Really not a lot of changes to the Wild roster. The big one, of course, is Kevin Fiala going to the Los Angeles Kings. But then with what you are bringing in and how you're replacing his point production as a team, again, you're not going to replace as an individual player an 80-point player that Fiala was last year. You're just not going to do that with one player in the system. But when you can offset that with increased production from Matt Boldy, when you introduce Marco Rossi, when the power play looked much better in the preseason, when the penalty kill in the preseason scored more goals than they allowed, 3 shorthanded goals versus 2 power play goals against. That's actually, wait, no, that number might not even be right.
So
but they did have 3 shorthanded goals this preseason, and I know they had more than they allowed.
Yeah. So that brings me to a question for you.
Lay it on me.
If the Wild, based on all of the points you've laid out, I guess this depends on how you where you ever stand on this take as an idea in general. But if the Wild do not at least make it to the conference finals, was their season a failure?
I would say no on the conference finals. I will say this team desperately needs to get to the second round of the playoffs. Especially with the recent history of not being able to get there. You have an opportunity this year where, the West is kind of up for grabs behind Colorado,
right?
Who is, I think, head and shoulders above the rest of the Western Conference. I don't think that's a stretch to say.
No.
But as far as the Wild are concerned, they really, I don't think, took as big a step back as what some of the other teams in the Central Division did.
Yep.
I look at the Blues where David Perron is out, where their goaltender Ville Husso went to the Red Wings as well with Perron, where their young defenseman Scott Perunovich is out for the year again. Defensively, they're not quite there. Goaltending, I've never been a Bennington guy.
I don't trust him, especially after fantasy last year. I really don't trust him now.
Yeah, so I just don't see it. Nashville will be in the mix. Dallas will hang around, but I think the Wild are still just in better shape. Joey's saying I sound like Billy Bean. Need 4 guys who scored 20 points to replace him. Yeah,
that's
Billy.
Good.
This is Marco Rossi. Go through the whole bit.
I mean, no, I totally agree. I mean, like between you look at the standings, like take the Avalanche out of it because they're gonna most likely run away with the Central.
They're winning the Central.
They're winning the Central. If they don't, I don't know what the hell just happened. But so aside from them, obviously take out the Coyotes and the Hawks. They're going to be at the basement. The Jets are probably going to be not far away from that either. So you're right. You're really only battling, and I would say you're only battling hard with the Blues and maybe the Preds.
Yeah, I think Nashville's slightly in a better shape than Dallas. Just
exactly, like Dallas is old.
They are, and when with Jake Ottinger, really, this is his first year to fully take ownership of the net and be the starter.
I'm rooting for that kid, but man, wouldn't it be something if everyone crowning him during the offseason, he just turns out to be terrible?
I would absolutely hate that. I drafted him in literally every.
I mean, obviously, that's not going to be the case. It would just be the ultimate irony.
Joey asking, is that a red Geyser cup?
Is it? Did you steal a cup from Geyser? Bradley University, anyone who's watching, he stole from you. Do you know, fun fact, actually,
I will neither confirm nor deny where I got that cup.
My giant mug, this face is on a massive picture on the wall in Geyser.
There you go. Had a kid. Good times. Be you.
On the face of Bradley, apparently.
Joel, let's go through and do Wednesday night picks real quick, and then
wait. Put a pretty bow on the Wild preview. Remember, my bow for the Hawks was patience.
Right. I think Minnesota, first round of the playoffs, got to be a win. Second round of the playoffs, we'll see what happens. I think you're probably looking at a situation there where, because you're staying in division, you're playing Colorado in the second round. If that's the scenario and you're playing Colorado in the second round, I would absolutely love a win in that series, but I'm not going to predict a win in that series. If they end up losing in the second round to Colorado, fine. That's still a good year for me.
Anyone else, though?
Right. If it's losing to, I just don't know how with the way the playoff table is set up, where there would be a scenario where not just because you would have presumably Colorado wins their first round matchup, and then as the second place team in the division, that's who you'd play in the second round. So I don't see a scenario where that wouldn't be the case. I think the only other way would be if somehow whoever won the Pacific had a higher regular season point total and the Wild finished as wild card 2.
That's just not going to happen.
Which at that, it's not going to happen. So I don't see a scenario where they're not a second round opponent.
Right.
Okay. That said, got to win the first round. Need to see that continued growth from Boldy, Rossi, and Addison in particular. But I think if they end up at or around a similar point total from last year, I'm less concerned with the point total and more concerned about the growth and the production. Special teams killed the Wild last year. The power play down the stretch couldn't buy a goal. Power play was something like 60% over the final month of the season and the playoffs.
Don't worry too much about the power play, though. You can.
I mean, when the Wild were taking,
you can win championships with bad power play numbers.
When the
Trust
Wild,
me, I know.
When the Wild were going like 3 for 5 on the penalty kill down the stretch,
yeah,
and giving up 2 power play goals against per game, and your power play isn't getting them back, that's when it becomes a difference. So I'm expecting to see some big things there. Joey, playing Colorado would be like playing the Hawks. Tip your cap because you lost to the best. Otherwise, they have to win the first round matchup. Otherwise, another wasted season with some of those. Yeah, I think I don't think it's fair to say outright a wasted season, but definitely it's a disappointing result.
No, I totally agree, and I think it makes sense. My bow for the Hawks is just patience, development, and draft capital. Your bow for the Wild is your window is opening.
Yes,
but it is not fully open yet.
Right, and it's going to take 2 or 3 years for that window to get fully open to the point where the Parise Suter buyouts come off the books. Like, yes, the Wild are still in very good shape with where they're at now, but when they suddenly have that room to go out and sign guys. By the way, should mention this as well. Saw on Twitter today, like the Wild aren't in, cap hell, as some people like to call it. In fact, if you look at the team as a whole, the Wild have right now at the opening of the season $3.2 million in cap room, with $14.4 million in deadline cap space. So they could go out and get a $10.5 million player at the trade deadline.
Why are you saying 10.5 million? God,
I would hate it so much personally, but I'm just saying that realistically,
you would hate to have Patrick Kane on your roster.
I would.
Wow.
It would just feel so wrong. I hated when Brett Favre came to the Minnesota Vikings.
Wouldn't it be sweet? Like, wouldn't that kind of bring everything full circle? Like, your owner of the team would actually be with the team finally.
I hate you so much right now. Wednesday night picks. Here's the scoreboard from last year.
Let's go.
Joel, a strong run to end the season. You were something like 15-4 down the stretch, running away with a 48-32 record. I had a really bad slump in February and March, but climbed back as the season ended to get just above 500. And then Colton Kaler, we should mention him as well, 3-0, the only perfect picker that we've had so far. But we'll have some other guests on throughout the season as well and add some names to that total. Joel, we didn't get to go over these beforehand, so I'm just going to kind of go real quick through these.
Who cares? Wednesday night picks are back, and actually, as of officially 10 minutes ago, hockey is officially back. Puck dropped 10 minutes ago. All right, go ahead.
Okay, Joey's going to throw it in here quick, too. His bold take that is bold. Hawks ruin banner night. Oh.
That's pretty bold. What? By not letting them score 6? They score 5 instead.
Somehow the betting line for that game is still at Colorado minus 1.5. I'm surprised it hasn't moved to Colorado minus 2.5.
Because I'm a glutton for punishment, I'm going to toss like $5 on the Hawks in that game.
Hey, you might as well.
Why not? Anyway.
Boston Bruins plus 120 at Washington Capitals minus 140. Bruins still dealing with some injuries. McAvoy out, Marchand out.
Yeah.
Joel, who are you taking here?
Give me the Caps.
Yep, I'm in the same boat here.
It's not even like we don't even need to talk about it. Give me the Caps. Those injuries are going to plague the Bruins, and they're going to have a hole to dig out of.
Toronto Maple Leafs minus 1.5 goals at the Montreal Canadiens.
Oh, I am absolutely taking the Leafs at minus 1.5 goals.
I am so conflicted here because I look at Montreal's forward group, and I think it's not nearly as bad as what a lot of people make it out to be. But their defense group is just brutal. And the fact that they don't have Carey Price anymore in net to bail them out is definitely one that hurts.
Yeah.
However, this team has played decently well against Toronto over the last couple of years. And in fact, Montreal split the season series last year. They beat them in the playoffs 2 seasons ago. So at plus 1.5 goals, it feels dirty to do this, and I feel like if I take Montreal,
hey, what's our mantra?
Just wait for it. I'll get to that.
Oh, okay.
I feel like if I take Montreal, then the Leafs are going to win like 7-2. If I take Toronto, the Canadians are going to win like 2-1 out of nowhere. Just because there's no John Tavares for the Maple Leafs. He's out injured to start the year.
Right.
Doing it for the bit, I'm going to take the Canadians, and I'm going to hate myself for it.
Canadians for the bit.
And our third and final pick of the night, because we usually just do 3. Seattle Kraken plus 105 at Anaheim Ducks minus 115.
Damn, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Like
John Gibson questionable for the game. Should mention that.
Oh, that hurts my fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Ducks are going to be on the up and up, I think. So I'm gonna take the Ducks in that one. I know I went with all the favorites. Whatever.
Yeah, you did, but only slightly.
I have a title to defend. All right.
Yeah. I'm with you here. I'm going Ducks. So you and I are both going Ducks. You and I are both going Capitals, and then we split on the Maple Leafs and Canadians puck line.
Yep.
2 minutes for roughing. I'm going to put that up on the clock real quick for you here.
Is that me?
That's you.
Alrighty. That works. But I will lead into it with don't turn off the episode after the 2 minutes for roughing has ended, because I have something to add to it that's not a rant, but a conspiracy theory. Ooh.
We didn't talk about this one either. I'm intrigued. 3, 2, 1, go.
We're going to jump into the NFL, and I know everyone has seen the plays I'm going to mention, and that would be the roughing the passer penalties. Grady Jarrett, right? I'm saying his name right? Yeah.
Yep.
Grady Jarrett on Tom Brady, and obviously there's all the arguments of, oh, it's Tom Brady, so that's why he got the call. While, yes, I don't disagree, at the same time, you see plenty of the all-time QBs get that call. Rodgers gets that call quite a bit as well. So, I mean,
the Rodgers rule,
exactly. So here's the thing. That was literally the worst call I've ever seen in my life in the NFL, and the NFL refs have plenty of those. I might as well
the Brady call.
Yeah, that roughing the passer on Grady Jarrett, that was the worst call I've ever seen in my life. Now,
until last night.
Exactly. You beat me to it. You're taking my 2 minutes.
Sorry, go ahead.
So,
that's right.
Exactly.
Minutes.
Until last night, Chris Jones, that was the best play in theory, because he not only gets the sack, what also looked like a pretty light sack too. Like, it looked like he fell on top of him, but he really didn't, because you actually see his hand on the ground, like softening the blow on top of Derek Carr. He also stripped the ball in the middle of it before Carr touched the ground. That was the coolest play ever, but it's all for naught because the refs had to, of course, be their usual selves and literally not deserve the job that they hold and make the worst call since Sunday. It took less than 24 hours. Or no, technically, it was. It was basically 24 hours later. It took. These roughing the passer calls need to be talked about, just like they had to go meet in a room to talk about the catches, and just like they had to go talk about pass interference. They need to go talk about this and get their shit together.
2 minutes for roughing the passer.
2 minutes for roughing the passer. Well done. Now, really quick to close us out. To go along with that, fine refs for bad. Exactly, HP. But here's the thing. Chris Jones actually had the most mature response to the whole thing. And I totally agree. Put it up to replay. You put all the other shit up to replay. If we're going to start making these horrible friggin' calls, and I get it, sometimes it might be difficult depending on what the ref's looking at, put it up to review.
Yeah, I think the issue with roughing the passer is that, like pass interference, it's a judgment call. And when you have judgment calls that you put to video review, you run into problems. Everybody can see if a player was lined up offsides. Everybody can see if there were 12 men on the field. But beyond that, when you get into your plays like holding or roughing the passer, pass interference, these ones that are a bit more subjective of a call, that's where it gets tough for me. So I don't know how you could necessarily legislate that, because, again, it's going to look different in real time versus on replay. But I do think, the NFL has gone 0 days without nonsense. It's didn't even have to change the dial from Sunday into Monday.
Right.
It to me, that was a strip sack and a fumble recovery, all on one play, and he did it by the book. Like, I don't know what he's supposed to do differently there. And I do wonder if it's because of the Tua concussion that the league is being more cautious with that.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, and I understand. But here's my quick little. I'm going to leave you with a conspiracy theory. Okay. You know me; I don't buy into most conspiracy theories, but I can count on one hand how many I'm actually like. Yeah, you know what? I could see that. I'm going to add to that one hand with this conspiracy theory: is that the NFL meets Goodell or whoever the officials are. They meet with the officials of whether it's each game or whether it's just, all right, here's the schedule, here's who's officiating these games, and they meet in the preseason. They meet, and you know what? I think they enjoy these terrible calls. That's why there's never accountability. These refs are never held accountable because you see the same guys over and over and over again making these calls. There's no accountability, right? I think they meet, and I think they basically say somehow, hey, when the opportunity raises itself, you need to make a pretty bad call, and it needs to be a controversial call. It doesn't have to be every week, but it's got to be in a primetime game at the very least. And what do they gain from that? What are we doing right now? What are all the local news outlets doing when it involves those two teams? What are the national outlets like ESPN doing? They're talking about it. And I get it. The NFL owns a day of the week. Why do they need more marketing and more word of mouth and more publicity? You can never have enough publicity and marketing and what have you. If you're getting talked about, that means you're winning. So that's my very weird, far-fetched conspiracy theory.
I'm going to stop short of saying they outright tell the referees to make bad calls, but I certainly will buy into the belief that they actively do not punish because of what you just mentioned.
That's fair.
The talking about
I wanted to go as extreme as possible, but that's more fair.
Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Anyway, that's my grassy knoll take for the day.
That's a good way to end the show here. Thank you to everybody for watching during the show tonight. We are live 7:00 on Tuesday nights.
6:00 Central.
6:00 Central, streaming on YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, and on Facebook. Be sure to like, subscribe, and give us a follow on Twitter at PodSnipeCelly.
Please.
And on Facebook, you can search PodSnipeCelly there. The same deal there. Thank you to Noob Sports and the Sports 2.0 Network for giving us a platform for the show every week. We truly could not do it without the support of the 2.0 Network and with Noob Sports as a whole. So season number 2. The Blackhawks tomorrow night against the Colorado Avalanche. The Wild on Thursday against the New York Rangers. He's Joel. I'm Dan. Enjoy the rest of your night, everybody.
Happy hockey.